Deepak.
Yes.
This is Nilesh. Thanks for your blog. It is really awesome blog.
Thanks.
And you are teaching through experience, not than, just a contextual textbooks type of course. So my question here is, let's say there is a business, let's say dentist or photographer, a small business, how much budget they should allocate for the marketing? So that, as a marketer, what we should tell them that, okay, spend X money so that they will get convert as a client.
So, if it is a small client, so recently I had a meeting with a small client. And this small client they started with a jewelry e-commerce store, and then they saw sales were happening. It's in a very particular niche for designer jewelry, and they understand the market well. And then they also opened up a store, and the store is also doing well right now. So they do, I think, around 10 lakhs a month in revenue easily. So they wanted more digital presence, and we had a discussion with them on what to do. So for small clients, what I advise them is that you cannot outspend the competition, especially with e-commerce category, because people with big pockets, investors and investors coming from outside the country, they have basically spoiled the market in the sense with you go ahead and advertise and you try to make sales, you might end up spending $100 in ads, you might end up making maybe $30 or $40 in sales, which is not even a profit for you. So you are going to lose money, and other e-commerce stores are consciously losing money. And as a general rule, what I believe is that marketing is a means to an end. Marketing's job is to fire the marketing team. In the sense, if you think about Google, Google doesn't need to advertise the fact that it has a search engine. It's the search engine, right? And if you are becoming a brand category leader, that's what marketing takes you. And once you become a brand category leader, that's like achieved. Then you can go ahead and do a different niche. And you need to become number one in your category, and there are multiple subcategories, and there are smaller and smaller categories always. So there is a book called 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Al Rice and Jack Trout. Anybody has heard about that book? Yeah. So, and there is a book about branding and everything. And it's a very small book. You can complete it in 1 hour. And what this book says is that people remember only number one in a category. And you need to get that category clear and you become number one in it. Like for example, and every mature market eventually becomes like a two-player game. Like for example, there was Coca-Cola, there was Pepsi-Cola, and there was something called Royal Crown Cola, which had 20% market share, but it eventually faded out because people can have only 2 category leaders and sometimes only 1 in a particular category. 2 can actually survive because someone who doesn't prefer 1 would go to 2. And then sometimes when you look at markets like search engines, by the way, how much time do we have? How much time do we have for Q&A?
So just this one question.
Okay.
And I'm sure that there are still a few questions that they'd like to ask. You can connect with him at track 2 at 4 p.m.
So there is another track that we are doing, which is more like a Q&A and more of practical workshop. So this is a very interesting question, right? So I'll just take another 5 minutes for that. So people remember only number one, and then there is also always an alternative that they need. Like for example, Ola and Uber, right? You have 2 players, and then the third player either gets destroyed or get acquired or something. Like we had Taxi for Sure, which got acquired, right? So eventually you create categories and you become brand leaders, and that should be always the goal of marketing. Because people remember only number one, and when they need an alternative, there is an existence or possibility for a number 2 to exist, and sometimes that's also not there. So what is the category that you are operating in is the question that you need to ask. And for me, when I'm working with small clients, the question is always, what are you focusing on? And I know not everyone will be ready to take this advice. Like I cannot go and tell a dentist that you need to create yourself as a brand category leader for kids dental alone. That is not an advice that they will be able to receive, but at least for this e-commerce store, that's the advice I gave them. What is the category? What is your market? Who are you trying to be someone for? Because people remember only one. Like for example, if I ask you who is the first president of India, you can just answer it immediately. Who is the second president? Not everyone can answer. Who is the third president? Forget about it. But who is the #1 women prime minister in India? You can answer it easily. But that is the third prime minister. And the third prime minister is better remembered than the second prime minister because the third prime minister is the number one in a separate category, which is women prime minister. So what are you going to do? So once they get that clarity, and if they don't have that clarity, I ask them to work on it first. And then I created a marketing strategy for them. And the marketing strategy is usually telling the brand story through digital mediums, which was not available before. Because before you can, with B2C branding, you can just only put hoardings and TV ads, and you can put magazine ads, and there was never an opportunity to tell a story. Like for example, right now I'm working with Ashirvad Pipes on their brand, and Ashirvad Pipes is something that everybody knows. They have become a household name. But if you think about Ashirvad Pipes and if you think about Phenolux Pipes, you know that both are big brands. But how is Ashirvad Pipes different? Nobody knows. Digital gives you an opportunity to tell a story. You can put a 1-minute video on YouTube that can go viral. You can write blog posts, you can engage consumers, and you can actually tell a story. Like for example, the jewelry store, which was started, had a name, and the name never stuck to me. And I asked her, why did you come up with this name? Then she told the inspiration behind that name. That particular name is actually a historical figure who was a great warrior, a female warrior, and that stuck to me because people remember their stories, and digital helps you share that stories. So then you create a long-term SEO strategy, you have a long-tail SEO strategy, but everything you get back. Like for example, right now, today I told you my story, how I got started, what I did. So this is something that sticks, people remember, because people like remembering stories about other people, right? So I feel digital is a means and a better means to tell a story, and the story should eventually lead to strengthening your brand and making you the brand category leader that some people can evangelize with and share your story. This is the only possible long-term strategy. Of course, some clients are not having the mental bandwidth to listen and analyze, and some people listen. And people who don't listen, I will just say that, SEO kar dunga, site audit kar dunga, ye kar dunga, pay kar do, and they will pay. There are also people like that. But what we need to do to make a difference and to make them a bigger brand, and then you have the case study as a consultant that you did that for them, is to help them build a brand. And building a brand and becoming a brand category leader should be the ultimate goal, and marketing should be a means to that. And then you use digital to tell the story, and it could be a personal story that they can tell. It could be a YouTube video. Like for example, I'm like, don't create standard creatives of ads and just post it on Facebook. Customer comes in, take a small video of it, post it on Facebook, and then boost it. Let that video speak, and let there be a story behind it. Why did you create? How is this different? So she found out that there are 2 big corporate competitors for her. And these 2 corporate competitors actually are international players, but they are getting it made by handicraftsmen in India. And tell a story about the handicraftsmen. This will be shared on WhatsApp. This is something that will spread, right? So I'm a huge fan of Seth Godin, Purple Cow, Ideas That Spread, and everything. And if you want to think about that, read Seth Godin's books. And I'm trying to bring it in. It's a very long process. It might take a decade for people to understand that branding is important, because we are yet to come away from that mindset. It's all about, the basic idea is that you cannot cut through the clutter by adding more to the clutter. You cannot be heard by shouting in a room where everyone is shouting. And you cannot start shouting louder, because someone is always waiting to shout even louder. So don't try to cut through the clutter by adding more to the clutter. Be different, be remarkable, tell a story that reflects, and build a brand. So I know, long answer for a short question, but I hope that made sense.
Thanks, Deepak.
Thank you so much.